Hi guys, welcome back. In this part number 3 of the introduction, today we are going to talk about, we are actually going to work on a project. This is going to be a very small project, but it is going to be very powerful. It's powerful because of the two reasons that this is again going to, revise whatever we have done so far. So if you, let's say, maybe 0.00%, if there's something you didn't understand in my previous two videos, then this is going to clear. This video is going to clear all the concepts because of the reason that we are going to work on the live project. Now you know that in Excel, when we learn the VBA, generally we have a data, and in that data we do a lot of tasks. We do the filters, we do the sorting, we make the charts, we make the pivots, we also compile the data, because data is for data is main ingredient in the Excel, because you put the data there and you do all the things in that data to make the reports, to make the beautiful reports, to make the very analytical reports, right? So obviously you are learning the VBA so that you can automate each and everything. So now we are going to work on this project, which will compile the data from all the sheets, and it is going to put the data in the another workbook, another Excel file. Okay, so let us go and start this. As you can see here, I have here sheet A. I have put some dummy data here, and then in this my sheet B also I have put some dummy data, right? So now what we want to do is we want to go to every sheet one by one, and we want to copy this data, and we want to paste that data in a new file. Okay, so what I will do, I will go and create a new workbook, right? Control N is the shortcut key if you do not know, to create a new workbook. And I'm going to save this workbook, and we're going to save this workbook on my desktop. Okay, so I simply go to the browse, and we're going to save this by the name of the test. Okay, so I just go and write here test, and this I am saving it on my desktop. Okay, now what I'm going to tell you in this project is that, let me close this. So basically I want to compile the data here from all the sheets of the another workbook. Okay, so the first sheet data should come here, and the second data should start from here, and the third data should start from here. So we want to actually club all the sheets data into one sheet, which is the test workbook. It is a different workbook, right? Now this is a very good exercise, because this is going to tell you a lot of things. It is going to tell you about the power of your macro editor. Okay, because normally we think that the macro editors are not really so helpful, right? But that's not the, it is not really 100% true, guys, because I use a lot. I use this macro editor a lot. In fact, when I was learning the VBA long time back, I used to really make fabulous codes using this macro editor. Of course, it has many limitations, and that limitations we will cover with the VBA, with our own programs. But the point is, you saw my previous the video, the part 2 of this introduction VBA, where we quickly recorded the macros, and we saw that how to go to the last cell using the control down arrow, and how to go to the right side, and how to go to the up side, or maybe if you want to select the data from here, control shift right arrow and then down arrow. So this is something we have already seen, and those commands, yes, I admit that initially these commands, it's a little difficult to write it, difficult to remember it if you're a beginner, but then you have a macro editor, and you can quickly go and record those things. So gradually you will start understanding, you will start remembering those commands, so no worries. So now the idea is to create a macro which go in every sheet and pick up the data. Okay, now the thing is, before I start, I want to tell you something. We want to make this program very dynamic, so that if in future if I have some more data over here, then that should also be copied by your that macro. So we want to make sure that if there is any change happens in the database, in your all these different sheets, my macro should be able to copy the entire data and paste it in the test file. Okay, so now we're going to use majorly those 4 shortcut keys. So I just, let me just write it down here, though I have explained that in my previous video also. So these are the the keys we are going to use it, right? Arrow down, or maybe the left arrow key, or maybe the right arrow key, or maybe the up arrow key. Well, that depends, right? But we will use that with the control shift key. Okay, because you know, if I go here and I press Control Shift right arrow and down arrow, the data will be copied. So I'm not really going to use my mouse or keypad, you know, like this, that I go one by one and select this cell, right, like this, because this is not the good way. Because if you record the macro like this, for example, look at this, I record the macro. Let me just quickly repeat that. So I select here and I press the shift key and I click here with my, you know, keypad. So the data is selected. I'm not using here any shortcut key. Now when this is done, I stop the recording. Now if I go back to the Visual Basic, and here, you know, we're gonna see that the code. So let's go to the Project Explorer. I don't know why it is coming blank. Okay, so now you see that the module is inserted by the VBA, the Excel macro editor, and you see that this is a static code. This says that A1 to G14 should be selected. So you know, if I run this command, this is a very static thing. It is going to only copy the A1 to G14, and that is something we want to avoid it. So let me just quickly go and remove this. Okay, so this is how you can remove it. So definitely we will go and use the shortcut keys. So I just want to ensure that before we start, we should have a good amount of idea what we are doing and why we are doing. Using the shortcut keys, you know, Control Shift right arrow and down arrow will take care of your all the columns, you know, to the left side, to the right side, and to the, of course, you know, when you move it down. Okay, so now let us go and start the code. So we haven't really written any program in the VBA window so far. We have been learning just to record the macros and to edit the macros, you know, and to use the shortcut keys. So again, in this video also, in this chapter also, you will do the same thing, right? But yes, definitely we will like to manipulate the things, and some of the things you will today in this video learn, which are very important and which will go with us, you know, throughout this the training. Okay, so let's go and start this. So I'm just going to hit on the record macro, and I will give it a name called compile data project. Okay, would you like to create any shortcut key? As I said that in the part number 1, that if you want to do that you can, but I'm just not really interested in that. I click OK. The macro is started. So let us, for the time being, forget that there is any macro recorded. Okay, let's not really be you know, over conscious about this thing that the macro is recording something, so we have to do every step correct. Doesn't matter, even if you record something wrong, just make sure that you correct that step in the macro itself, because after all, if you do some correction, then macro editor will generate that line as well. So macro editor, if it is going to do something wrong, in the end, if you are doing, you know, right things in your macro, then obviously, you know, your macro editor will have those correct steps also. So we don't have to worry about it, right? So the first thing which I want to do here is that I want to first of all open the test file. Okay, now to open the test file, I'm going to use the Control O command. Okay, remember that don't just minimize this and go to the desktop and open the file. You know, after watching this video, obviously you will also have to do the practice. Use the Control O, or maybe you can go to the file, and from the file you can open that file. That's all up to you, right? Control O is basically the command which we use to open the files. So I'm just going to open this file. Now you can see this is my test file, and I open it. So this is the step which my macro editor must have recorded by now, right? Now what I will do is I will come back to my, now, you know, the book 1. So I'm just going to click here. I click back here. Once I click back here, now I will make sure that I should be on the sheet A. I'm already on the sheet A, okay, but still I will go and click here, okay, because you never know if you want to if you run this macro from the sheet B, then we need to make sure that we should be on the A sheet. So I selected the A sheet, and now I click on the A1. After clicking on the A1, I simply Control Shift right arrow and then down arrow. Now we want to copy the data, so Control C. Right, so we will also be learning today that how to copy the data, right? So I will show you the command. It's very easy. So I copy the data, I go to the test file. Now when I go to the test file, I just go and I click on the A1. Okay, so I click on the A1. I'm clicking right now on the A1, and I say Control V. Okay, now once you do that, you come back to the book 1, and then you go to the B sheet, and then you again click on the A, and then say Control Shift right arrow and down arrow, copy the data again, select the test file, click here and paste the data, right? Now again we go to the book 1 and I click on the C sheet and I click on the A1 and again control shift right arrow and down arrow, and again I copy the data, I go to the test file, and now when I go to the test file, what I have to do is I have to see where is my the last cell. So I go here and I paste the data here. Okay, so I come back to the book 1 and now I select the sheet A and I put my cursor on the A1 cell, right? So we have compiled the data successfully. Let us go and see that if the macro is going to work for us. So I just stop the recording. You stop the recording and let us close this test file without any changes because we will like to keep it empty. So I'm saying don't save it. Let us see if we can do this in our macro which we have recorded. So let's go to the Visual Basic. Now you can see that the bunch of the lines, couple of lines actually it has written. In fact, there are I think 16-17 lines over here. Very interesting. So let's go and check that now one by one. So I just go and give you some width so that you can see. Let's remove these blank lines, and we don't need this comment. We know that this is the macro name, compile data project. Okay, so backspace, and I think now you can see the entire code, isn't it? Let me just go and further backspace it. So this is the entire code. Interesting. Okay, now before I run this, I want to couple of things I want to put into your knowledge. The first thing which we did is we opened the test file. Now look at this, guys. Workbooks.open. Workbooks.open is the command which Excel VBA uses to open any file, right? So that means if I just press enter and I want to open any file, I can write here workbooks.open, right? And then it says that where is that file name, right? So you have to provide here the file name along with the path. So that's something we will learn in the coming sessions, right? Right now this is the basic video, so you really just see this video as a fun, right? Don't really put much burden on your mind that how these lines are coming, because we really haven't even started yet writing the programs. We are just doing the introduction. Okay, so you just need to understand, as I said in my last session also, guys, that VBA is a very user friendly language, because it is more like English language. You can understand it. It's not like any machine language, alien language. So you can read this workbooks.open. So when you run this, it says that it's C drive user Acer desktop test.xlsx. Now this is my complete path. Acer is basically my username, and you know that I saved that, I opened that file from my desktop, so it is giving me the test file with the extension which is .xlsx, right? Any file which does not have any macro, the extension is .xlsx. Any file which has a macro, the extension is .xlsn. This we learned in the part 1, I guess, right? So we are going to run this and let us see now how it is going to work. Okay, so I run this, I start running this. Obviously I will not run this on the F5 mode. First of all, we will go and use the F8 mode to run this step by step. So you can start from here also, or you can directly press the F8. The choice is yours, but make sure your cursor should be within the sub and end sub. Okay, so we are starting, guys. Now I go and press F8. Now the moment this line will be executed, let us see that what is going to happen, right? If the code is correct, it should open the test file. So let's go and run this F8. Now the moment I run it, you see that the test file is open. This is the test file which is open. Very nice. Now if you remember, after opening this, we went back to the book 1. Now this is the line which is written here, Windows book 1 dot activate, right? So this basically will take me to the book 1, right? So I run this, you see that I'm back on the book 1, right? Now once you're on the back, you're back on the book 1, somehow it is again going to the test file. Okay, I do not know, maybe I selected that, but let's run this and let us go and see that. Obviously this is going to select the test file, so this is done. This step wasn't required, so I can also delete it, right? And then again it is coming back to the book 1. Well, this is not required, so what you can do is you can simply go and delete that, or maybe you can comment that. That's all up to you. Right now I'm just going to comment that because this is not really required, right? And this is also not required. Okay, so you see that we are also editing the macro. Okay, so now, or you can delete as well. I mean, it's all up to you, right? If you want to delete it, you can also delete it. So let me just delete that, it's fine. Okay, now let's go and press F8. Now you see that it is selecting the sheet A. I'm already on the sheet A, right? So this is good. Now it will go in the A1. So this is, we are making it sure that before we go and use this Control Shift right arrow key, this I told you in the previous video, that your selection has to be correct. For example, if your cursor, when the user is running this macro from this the front end, by creating the button, his cursor is here. Now if the cursor is here and you don't write this range a1 dot select, then what happens when you run the selection dot selection end excel to right, that will start from here because this is the selection, right? I had explained this. So that is why, guys, when I was recording the macro, I was making sure that I should be on the correct cell. Now if your cursor is on I3, when you run this, it is going to take you to the A1. Now from the A1, it is going to select the entire thing. So you see that it has selected the entire range. Now this line is Control Shift right arrow, isn't it? And then this becomes your selection. Now we have to go downward, and we pressed actually Control Shift down arrow, and so selection dot end excel down dot select is what we have written here, right, with the range command. So this is going to select the entire thing. Now selection dot copy is a new command for you, which I was telling you. It is going to copy the data, and then let's go and select the test workbook. So you see that I'm on the test workbook. Now again, I'm here making sure that I should be first on the A1. I'm already on the A1, and now active sheet dot paste. This is your Control V. So if you want to paste the data just like that, Control V, right? I'm not using paste special. Okay, I'm just Control V I'm using. So this is going to paste the data. Wonderful. Now you go back to the book 1, and now you select the sheet B, and then again you go in the A1 in the top. That becomes your selection, this selection, and now we are again going to use the Control Shift right arrow and then down arrow. Okay, just leave this line. This is basically the escape command, because the previous data is still copied in the clipboard because you copied the data from the sheet A. So this is just going to escape that, right? So we need not to pay any attention. What we need to see is that now it is going to copy the current selection. So you can see that in the Excel the data is copied. You can see all these blinking, the border. Now we go back to the test file. Now this is going to select the A15 cell, right? So in the A15, I'm going to paste the data. You have the data pasted, and now you go back to the book 1. Now you go to the sheet C, and this will again repeat the same step. In the A1, I go and Control Shift right arrow, Control Shift down arrow. Again, I'm going to copy the data. I come back to the test file, and now I go in the A35 cell and paste the data. I now come back to the book 1, and then I go and select the sheet A, and then I go and select the A1. Wonderful. The code is working, isn't it? Right? So now can we run this quickly? Well, of course we can run this. First of all, let me just close this file, and let me also go and save this file. Okay, now I want to tell you one thing, guys, very interesting thing. If I go and save this file, Control S, you know what will happen? This will take me to the, obviously I have to give it a name. Now you can't give the name XLSX, which is the extension, right? Because now this has a macro. So I'm just going to change that to XLSM macro enabled, and I'm going to put this file in the desktop, and I will name this as maybe I will name this as project. Okay, project. So I just save this file. Now if I run the macro using, again I go back here and I run this macro, what do you think, guys? Will this code work after changing the name, or will it not work? You can pause the video, you can give it a thought, and then come back and see if this is what you have thought. If you have thought what I'm going to tell you, 100% marks to you. Great. But if you are not able to think, then listen to this very carefully. Now what happened when you're going to run this? So I again run this. See this. The test file got open. Now in this particular line, Windows Book 1, when I run this, see what will happen. You will get the error, subscript out of a range, guys. Now guys, if you have seen my the YouTube videos, you know that I really stress a lot on learning the errors, because sometimes what happens, people they they have this phobia from the errors. They really don't want to understand the reasons of the errors, why they are coming. They just go to the Google and try to sort out the things, try to copy the paste from there, copy the code and put it here, or maybe they start reworking. No, in my class, in my tutorial, I'm going to make you champion. I'm going to tell you each and everything, that if this error is going to come, then what would be the cause for that, right? So whenever you get this subscript out of a range error, write it down somewhere if you want to write it down, okay? But yes, definitely we will have this error again and again, because we have a long way to go. So whenever we work on the projects, this error may come again. Subscript out of a range is an error. This comes when the Excel VBA is unable to identify the object. It can be a workbook, it can be a sheet, right? Now if I click on the debug, so you want to see which line created the error. Obviously this is the line which is creating the error, so debug basically takes you to that line. If I again press F8, again you will have the same error. If I want to end this, I can click on the end, the macro will end, right? If I click on the help, this can take you to the VBA help, but that's not really required. So you just click on the debug, and debug will take you to that line which is generating the error. So subscript out of a range is an error which, as I said, that it's unable to find that object. It could be a workbook, it could be a worksheet, any object in fact, right? Now if you look at this line, this says that please activate the book 1, but where is the book 1? When you recorded the macro, your workbook name was book 1, but right now you have changed that name. You have changed that name to what? Look at here. It's project.xlsm. So you have to make sure that in order for us to work on this macro, we should go and change the name. So I'm going to write here project.xlsm. Now VB is a case insensitive language. You can write it in whatever way you want, uppercase, lowercase, or proper case, first letter capital, rest of the letters, maybe you want to make it, whatever. I mean, it's not going to impact. But if you do a spelling mistake, then that will create the problem. Okay, so we have to write this project.xlsm with the extension, remember. Okay, so I write this. Now if I go and run this, look at this, guys, this is working. It has taken you to the project file. Now rest of the code remains the same. So again, this is going to copy the entire data, and this will take you to the test file. In the test file, the data will be pasted, and this line will again generate the error, right? This will give you the again error because book 1 is not there. So what we have to do is, I simply go and I reset the codes first of all, and let's do one thing. Reset means I have cancelled the code, right? I have exit from the code. So I just copy this, and everywhere wherever I see the book 1, I'm going to replace that with this project.xlsm, keeping my double quotes. Okay, this is very important. So I just go here, and again I change that to here I change this to project.xlsm, and then okay, I guess we are fine with this. All right, so now let's quickly go and run this. So we are done with this. If we get the error, we will handle it, let us see. But right now what I will do, I will quickly go and first of all close this test file. So create the button now, don't save. Now let's quickly go and create the button. So here I'm going to create the button. So I go and create the button over here, and this button we will right click and give it an assigned macro, and this assigned macro is going to be the compile data project. So I click on this. Okay, now when I run this, let's see what's going to happen. Okay, so right now this is the only file which I have opened, which is the project.xlsm. So let me click here, and you can see here that the data is copied and pasted. All right, so now we get the error. Now if you want to see the error, obviously you would like to see that where the code got stuck. So you just click on the debug, because you are on the F5 mode, which is the the fastest way of running the macro. Now this takes you to the book 1. Obviously again I have the same error, so let me just quickly go and say that project.xlsm, and let's go and run the F5. There we go. So the code ran, guys, and let's see that. You can see that in the test file we have the entire data coming here, right? This is cool, right? So you see that you can compile the data as well using just the macro editor. You haven't even learned the VB yet. So just imagine after having 5 or 6 more sessions where you want to stand, right? Interesting, guys. I hope you're loving this, right? Now the point is, I want to now go here and write some numbers. Let's say I write here 100, and I just go and just pull it to the right side and then in the downward direction. Now it would be very interesting to see that if it is going to copy the entire data, and then I go here and just one line I'm going to write here that demo. Okay, so this line should also come, isn't it? So we want to see that if we run the macro, is it going to be captured or is it not going to be captured? First of all, I'll quickly run this macro again. Click here, the macro is running. You see that it just taken 3-4 seconds. Let's go to the test file. Test file is open. Now we're going to see that whether we have the data pasted. So I just go and minimize it. Let's see that. So if I start from the top data, now here, now you can see that I get some problem here, isn't it guys? Now why this 100 is coming here, and what about this 100, this portion? So this is not coming. Why? Because this is, I know that this 222. So what is this 222? Is it from which sheet it is taking? I think it's taking from this sheet, isn't it? So half of the data is pasted. I think these hundreds are pasted there, but this 100 is not pasted. So we have some problem here guys, isn't it? Right? Okay, let's go and let's see that. What about the other rows? So we got the test and I'm interested in checking the value which I have written there, which was I just forgot what I wrote in the sheet demo. Now the demo is not coming here. I think so. Can we go and check that? Yeah, demo is also not coming. So this is not working. This is not really a cool stuff. So what is happening? Now how will you check that? Obviously, let's go and run this step by step. Okay, I know the reason, but I'm going to show you. Okay, now let's go and run this macro step by step. Okay, so I go and quickly run F8. Let us open the test file. Now let's go back to the project file. It's going to take us to the sheet A1. So far so good. The data is selected, the data is copied. We go to the test file, we go in the A1, we paste the data, we come back to the project file, and now we go to the B sheet. We again go to the A1 and then select the data in the right side. Now Control Shift down arrow. Now this is going to be copied. I come back to the test file, and now when I come back to the test file, this is the problem area now. Because last time when you recorded this macro, you had only 14 rows. So what I did is, if you remember, you can rewind the video also. What I did is actually I manually selected A15 here because my data stopped in the row number 14. But this time you have a more data and your cursor actually should go to the A19. And this is what is happening. It is selecting the A15 and it is pasting the data here. And that is why guys, this data is, the new data is overriding the previous data. And same thing is happening with the next sheet also, right? So basically, what is the crux? The crux is that this A15 has to go because this is not making my code dynamic, right? Because if I have 100 rows in the sheet A, then that means I got to be on the row number 101 and not the A15, right? So what we will do here now, if you remember, instead of going and selecting my cell like this with my mouse, we will go here and we will find out the last cell, the non-blank cell. So what is the shortcut key to find the non-blank cell, the last non-blank cell of your data? You must be an Excel expert. If you are learning this Excel VBA, then you must be knowing that the shortcut key is Control down arrow, right? But though I had explained this part 2 also, so if you do not know, again I'm repeating that the Control right arrow will take you to the last cell to the right side. If you now use Control down arrow, it is going to take you to the last cell. You can see here it has selected this. Now using that, what we can do is we can simply say that from here please go and say the Control 1 and then move one cell down, because that's gonna make your code very dynamic. Okay, so now what we will do, I will simply go and close this test file because I want to now tell you one more code. Let me just don't save it. Now you need to understand now one thing very important. If I record this macro right now using the shortcut key record macro, I say that last row. Okay, now you see that if I directly go and select this cell A21 or A22, whatever you want to select, what will happen if I go and select this? the code will generate a line called range a22.select, and that is something we want to avoid it, right? So what I will do is I will first of all go to the A1, and now I will not using my mouse I go to the A22, but I go and say control down arrow. Now once you are on the control down arrow, then you just move one cell down to go to the next blank row where you need to paste the data. So we have just, let's stop the recording and let's see that what's actually going to happen now. So this is where we are now. This is the macro, the last row. Let's have a look. Now these active window, you see that scroll row, this is nothing, we don't need this. This is actually I was scrolling down, when I was scrolling this down, this one. So this is really not required. This is a junk line. I just go and delete that. Similarly, you can delete this as well. So now this is your perfect code. Now if you look at this, as I said that if you run the first line, obviously that's going to take you to the A22. I'm already on the 22, but this is not required, right? Because we use the shortcut key. Now let's see. So we go to the A1. That's very important. From the A1, I use the control down arrow key, guys. Now this is the down arrow key, right? But the point is, after I go to the last non-blank cell, I wanted to find out the next blank row. But then what I did is, after using the control down arrow, I just simply selected the A22. So if you're going to select the A22, again you will have the same problem. This is going to give you range A22. Again, this is wrong. Why? Because let's say if I just go and add some more data here, let's say this is the data, one more row I added. Now what according to you this code should do? This code ideally should take us to the row number 23, because this is what we need. We want to go to the blank row, but this will not do that, because when you run this, it takes you to the A1, and then using the control down arrow key, this will take you to the 22. But instead of now going to the next line, which is A23, this is going to take you back to the A22. I mean, this will keep you to the A22. Why? Because when I recorded the macro, what I did, I said control down arrow. After reaching to the last non-blank cell, I used my down arrow key. So when you use like that, again, the VBA will record it as A23. As simple as that. So what is the solution? You must be wondering then, because if you can't code like that, A23, A24, A25 dot select, then what is the solution? Well, the solution is here. Now we are going to use a function called the offset function, right? Now offset is a very powerful function. I really love this function. In Excel also, the offset, we use it a lot, especially in the arrays, in the Excel arrays we use, in the dashboards also we use it a lot, right? So if you know the offset, you will understand this very quickly. If you do not know offset, no worries, I'll explain you. It's very simple, guys. Basically in the VBA, how it works, I'm gonna tell you. Now you know that selection dot end Excel down will take me to the last cell. The last cell, I mean the last value, right? Keeping one thing in my mind that there is no blank row between. Many of you must be, you may have this question, because this question also keeps coming to me from my live trainings also, that if the data is like this, then how will you copy it? Because now if you go to the A1 and you use the control down arrow key, it will not go here, it will stop here, because this is the last line actually, right? Well, that we will learn in the coming sessions, but right now we have one condition, that there is no blank row between the table. Okay, so the data is coming properly, right? So now when I run this command, you know that this selection dot end Excel down will take me to the last non-blank cell. Now from here I have to go to the next line, the next blank cell, but I cannot write range A23, because next time if I have 100 rows to copy, then it has to be not, it should not be A23, it should be A101. And I cannot go back to the code again and again, keep on editing it. So what is the solution? So this is what you're going to write. Now you know that selection dot Excel down, selection dot end Excel down will take you to the the last non-blank cell of a data. So that becomes your obviously the active cell. So this is my active cell now, which is A22. So without giving it a number A22, without referring it to as A22, I just go and write active cell dot offset. Okay, offset start the bracket. You will have to provide two parameters here, row offset comma column offset. Row offset means that from the active cell how many rows you got to move, how many columns you got to move. Okay, so I want to move just one row, so I'm gonna write here 1. I want to move 0 column because I want to be on the same column, which is column A, so you're gonna write here 0. Okay, then close the bracket and say that dot select. So we are saying that if I just pull it back, you can also pull your this yellow arrow back. If you just now run this line, see what's gonna happen. Do you see that it has taken you to the next blank cell? Right now I have a question. If I just go and write here 1 comma 1, and if I rerun this line again, if I rerun this code again, what do you think where your cursor is gonna be? Which cell the VBA will select? Pause the video, think on it, come back and see that if you had answered correct or not. So I go and run this. Look at this, A1, selection end Excel down. This is my control down arrow key. This takes me to the last cell, and from here I'm saying move me from the active cell, move me by 1 row and 1 column. So that means your cursor is going to be here, because from this cell this is my 1 row and this is my 1 column, because this is the 0 column, right? So if I simply say that active cell offset 0 comma 0, that means actually I'm not even going anywhere, I'm not giving any movement, I'm on the same cell. So you just remember that 0 is actually to being on the same row. If you write the 0 here, if you write the 0 here, that means you are actually on the same column. You don't want to give the movement, right? So this is going to make our code dynamic, guys. So this is what we are now going to do in the previous code, this code where we got stuck with that reference issue. So let's go and run this now. So let's come back to this macro. Let's open the test file. The test file is opened, you can see in the background. And now let's go to the project file, go to the sheet A, A1, control shift right arrow down arrow. We have seen this several times now. Now we go to the A1, now we paste the data. Right now when we paste the data, we come back to the project file, we go to the B sheet, again we go to the A1. From the A1, that becomes my selection. I use the control shift right arrow and then down arrow, and then I'm going to copy the data. Once you copy the data, you go back to the test file. Now here this range A15, we don't need it. Okay, so what you will do, so I'll just go before the paste, I create some space and I write range. So maybe we can change this A15 to A1. Okay, so that's what we can do, but I'll just comment this line so that when you do practice you remember what's gonna happen, what actually happened, so I will not remove that. So we go and say that range A1 dot select. After we do the selection, you know how we write, right? So we're gonna write here to go to the last row, control down arrow. So you can say that selection dot end Excel to Excel end down, whatever the command is, you will have to write here. So if you want to write, you can write, or if you want to just copy this line, you can do that, because initially you are a beginner level programmer, so maybe you can copy this code from here. Okay, you can in fact copy both the lines from here. I just copy this and I'm just gonna put it here, control V. Now we will not run this line, we will comment this line. Okay, so this line is commented and now VBA will not run this line. So you see that, and this is where I will write that this line was the problem. Okay, you know why? Because it was not able to take us to the blank row of a table. Okay, because of the modifications in the table if you do. So now I go in the A1, and I use the control down arrow. This is gonna take me to the the blank cell, and this is what we needed, and then we will paste the data, right? So I reset the code here again, and I just quickly go and copy this, and let's modify here as well. Now you see that this is my range 835, so I'll comment this line. Before pasting the data, again I write this line. Now this is gonna work. So again, this is this line was the problem. So I think we are done with this. Now let's go and see that if we are able to work on this code. So I just close this test file, don't save. I hope you're enjoying the sessions, right? So, and this is what exactly I do in my, that online classes as well. So trust me, there's no difference, right? This is how I teach, and so you'll have the full benefit. So I go and open the file, guys. Once you open the file, let's quickly go to the project file, sheet A, select the data. You select the data, then you come back to the test file, paste the data here, then you go back to the project, sheet B, range A1, Control Shift right arrow, Control Shift down arrow, copy the data, go back to the test file. Now, before we paste the data, let's make sure we are on the right row number. In this case, it's gonna be 19 row number. So I will first go on the top, and then I use the control down arrow. You can see that now that becomes my active cell, because right now my cursor is on A18. You can see that, right? So now we will just move one row down, keeping the same column 0. So I'm back. I'm on the right cell. Now this is gonna paste the data. Wonderful. So your data is pasted. Go back to the project file, go to the sheet C, copy the data, and once you copy the data, come back to the test file again now, right? Go to the A1 file, use the control down arrow, and then this becomes your active cell, which is A40, and in the A40 just move it by one row. Wonderful. Now paste the data and come back to the project file, select the sheet A and the range A1. Bingo. You got it, man. So we have made this project. We have successfully made this project, and now let me quickly close this. Let's run this one more time, and I'm just gonna add some data over here. So I just go right here, maybe testing. I just go right here, testing, and I just go and put this here. And now in this case what I do is maybe I just go and delete everything. For example, I'm just using 1 2 3 4 rows, and over here again I also say that test. Okay, so I just go and test, and then again test, and now here also I'm going to add, let's say, Ajay, and let's see that if it is able to capture the row the column number. Obviously it should, because you're using control shift right arrow. So selection, that command selection dot end excel to right will take you to the last column. It should take care of everything. I don't know, right? Let's run this and let us go and check that. So I hit on this, macro ran, hopefully everything goes well. All right, there's no error, there's no debug. Very nice. So let's go and quickly check that. So now you can see that if I start from here, I have got the testing guys. The data is there, right? The testing data is there. Then after the 222, I have only 4 rows pasted here. You remember the 4 rows, and then we have the new data, and look at this, we have the new column as well, right? And we have these new rows as well. So no problem at all, right? So what we did actually, just to recap, we majorly used the control shift right arrow down arrow, okay? And then to find out the last row, we use the control down arrow. Control down arrow, I explained this in the previous video, but that's okay. Let's do this again and again, because that's how you will learn. So this is the arrow down key. I have used down arrow key, arrow down, whatever. I think I should call it down arrow key. So this takes us to the last non-blank cell, and from there we just use the active cell dot offset how many rows, how many columns I have to move. That's it. This is what we have done. So now the thing is, you must be wondering that if I can do so many things with this macro editor, again the question comes, then what is the need of the VBA? Isn't it, guys? Well, VBA is more than that, right? It's limitless. It is limitless in the sense of the opportunities you can find a lot of opportunities in the program. For example, I'll quickly tell you one thing. So what if tomorrow somebody rename this file to not A, but let's say ABC? Now do you think this code will work? This will not work. You want to give it a try? Look at this. I just go and close the test file. See this. You get the error, subscript out of a range. Now I told you that when you get the subscript out of a range, that means the object which you are, the sheet or the workbook you are trying to find out, that's not there. VBA is unable to find it out. How can you check which line is giving you the error? Obviously you click on the debug. You click on the debug and look at this. This is the line which is generating the error. What is this line? This line is sheet a.select. Sheet a.select means what? Well, when you recorded the macro, the name was A, so macro editor recorded the sheet as A, but right now you have renamed the sheet. So what is the solution? Either you keep your sheet back to A, or you just go and write here ABC, and the code will work. This is the first problem, right? You cannot rename your sheets. Well, maybe you would say then, that Ajay, normally in Excel, once you give the sheet names, you hardly change it. Well, I am absolutely 100% I agree with you. We don't really change the name of the sheets, we don't do that, right? But what if it happens? All right, so let's say it's not the case. Then I say that, so maybe then somebody deletes the sheet because it is not required. So if you just go and remove this sheet, what will happen? In this line where your VBA is looking for the sheet B, this will also give you the error called subscript out of a range. So subscript out of a range, because if you're going to delete that sheet, now you say that, okay, so I will tell my audience that they should not delete any sheet, Well, that is also okay. Okay, let's talk about the next probability. Now, what if you have some more sheets in the future like this, and you just, you go and give them the names like whatever you want to give. I don't want to get into that. But the point is, will your macro is going to take care of it? Obviously not, because in your macro, you haven't written sheet 4.select and sheet 5. You're not going there. The macro only records, in the recording, we have only used 3 sheets, sheet A, sheet B, and sheet C. So we haven't covered these sheets, right? So you will have to come back to the code and you will have to modify it. So this is where the VBA programming will come into action. When I say VBA programming, I don't mean that macro and the VBA are different. As I said before also, I mean when you start writing your own code, when you start writing the loops, because macro editor cannot record the loops for you. Now guys, in the coming sessions, when we will start talking about the loops, you will see that we will do the same task without even writing the sheet names. You will simply run the loop that whatever the number of sheets we have, just go in every sheet one by one without knowing their name. Now how powerful that can be, isn't it? So tomorrow if you have 50 sheets, the code will work. Tomorrow you have 100 sheets, the code will again work. Tomorrow you have 2 sheets, the code will again work, because you said that all the sheets should be covered irrespective of their name. So then you rename it or you delete it, the loop is going to take care of it, which macro editor cannot do that, right? So this is how the code is, and now you must use this Excel file and take the help of this and start practicing on it. And if you will find any difficulties, obviously you can let me know, right? In the first video I have given my email address, right? I have given even my phone number there, so definitely you can ask me in case if you think that you are missing something, you are not able to work on it, right? So I'll see you in my next video, and now you please practice, because we have now just begun the VBA. All the best to you. I'll see you soon. Thank you so much. Bye bye.